So, welcome to the Debug Lounge, our brand new swanky YouTube series that we're just getting it started. We have our first beta tester, Allan Davis here. So yeah, this episode or this series is all about like interacting with our fellow game devs wherever they may be in their career and on their game progress. So as we have a special treat today with Allan Davis. We're going to talk to him, get to know about his project, how long he's been working with Unity. So it should be a very fun show. This is our beta test, so this is the
Bear with us,
000. Yeah, bear with us as we get this started. Cool. I guess you want to just jump right into it, Andrew? Or
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
It's fun. We're not used to doing video, people. So
Cool. So Allan is actually as a member of our Debug Lounge, and this is again confusing, our Facebook group. So we've known him for quite a while. Allan, could you tell our listeners, tell them a little bit about yourself and how you got into game dev, what made you want to start this project, and tell us a little. Well, I guess we can talk about the project a little bit later, but just tell us about yourself and as a game developer.
Sure. Actually, my dad bought the first computer in the house back in, '89. So yeah, I've been playing computer games and had a kind of a back-end passion for them since then. Even went as far as in high school, took a typing class on computer and ended up teaching the teacher programming instead of actually learning to type. Actually didn't get good until typing till I got out of high school. But so I've been kind of back and forth trying to develop myself, develop my skills, and focused on programming more so, and then enterprise programming. Then a few years ago, I moved on to iOS, and I got introduced to Unity, having to do some AR applications and try to help a company get their apps into the App Store. They were doing some AR apps, augmented reality, and what they were doing was just jumping straight into the camera, and Apple doesn't like that. So we had to go in, cut in a splash screen to tell them how to use the app, and then that actually allowed us to push it through. And then we released them both iOS and Android. So that was actually my first introduction into Unity, and I haven't stopped since. I actually I had moved on to another company, and I saw someone had started up the Unity meetup in town, and they were struggling, looking for a place. I went and talked with my boss, since we were a small shop, and he said, "Yeah, we'd love to do something like that." So I got involved with the Unity meetup and became one of the organizers.
Cool. And you're based out in Atlanta right now, right?
Yes, I'm in Atlanta. So I'm one of the organizers of the Unity meetup, still to this day, and we meet the first Thursday in every month.
Cool. Sweet. Yeah, that sounds really cool.
you have big news, right, Allan? You guys just released a game, right?
Yeah. About a year ago, I started a company called Shadow Media. I'm one of the founders in it, and we just released our first game, which is a little 2D kind of Galaxy clone, but it was more of just to go through just to test some of the release process.
Yeah.
Because and I just wanted to put something out, and it's got Unity ads in it, Unity Analytics, just to see some things go through. But one of the interesting things and interesting learnings that came out of releasing this one was the fact that Google has implemented a kind of sort of content ID into their app names. So basically, if your app name is similar to another one, they'll flag your app for impersonation.
Oh, wow.
So, which actually I actually had to go through a rebranding process to get the app where it would pass through Google. Honestly, it's the first time I've ever had trouble getting an app through Google compared to iOS. iOS was easy compared to that. iOS only took 3 days for the first release and actually 2 days for the second one.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's so backwards from what I'm used to.
I know, was surprising for me. So it was good learning. It's made all of $1 so far. So
there you go. You're professional.
That's professional. That's all it takes. Yeah. Cool. So, Shadow Media. So how many members in the group? How many developers are working on this game, this initial release? And again, remind us the title of the game.
The title of this one is Vortex Strike, and I'm pretty much developer. We have one marketing and one finance guy, so it's kind of a mixture of the team. And we actually met playing a board game. We actually met playing Star Trek Attack Wing, which was. But we have a real good working relationship, and it's.
You can command a Starfleet ship
pretty
together.
much.
That's a good test for any company.
Cool. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the game. This how's it play? What made you want to make this game? I know you've been in the industry, or at least in the game development realm for a little bit now. What made you decide to go in this direction?
I've always, for about 6 years now, I've had this story in the back of my head that I've been trying to develop, and this is really just a little tear-off of that story. Basically what it is that I'm developing a much larger game, which is the actual story of as humans develop faster-than-light travel, what incidents occur in that development process, and where we go from there. So this is kind of a little offshoot of that story, and we've been talking about wanting to get a game out quickly, so I carved off a little piece of that story and made this little flying game, and just went ahead and put it out there because we wanted to go ahead and just get something out.
Right.
The bigger things is we actually have that game and another game that we're working on, which are huge, which are really much bigger games, and still only have one person working on them. But we're partnered with a comic book company here in Atlanta called Terminus Media, and we actually are taking one of their characters and developing a game based on that.
Cool.
And actually, we just created the first playable demo of a couple of levels, and actually play tested it Free Comic Book Day.
Oh, cool.
So we actually went and set up a couple of computers at a comic book shop. Actually, we were able to get people's input and some really positive feedback. I mean, I think no one came back and said this game sucks, which is always a positive.
That's always a good sign.
Exactly. Cool. I had a question, Allan, about this is more, I guess, more of a philosophical question. As an indie developer and having your own company, I know a lot of our listeners and watchers are going to be in a similar, I guess, position. What made you, you and your company decide to, just get a game out? Like having a game that you're working on, maybe a larger game. What made you decide to, maybe take a pivot and say, let's just get a game out? What was that decision process like?
We talked about it, and we came out and it's like, okay, these games take 6 months to a year to develop. Plus, we're working full-time jobs because we're doing all this on the side. It's like we need to, if we want to try to stand on our own, we need to try to bring some more funding in. It's like, and just at least go ahead and put something out, just to kind of help with some of the expenses and stuff that you have with a business. And it was kind of that. We had that discussion. It's like, well, if we carve a little section off, we might can get that going versus trying to bite off the whole thing.
Gotcha.
I mean, much longer. Yeah. The larger the game, the longer the process, and the more you grind at it. So if you can carve it into smaller chunks and focus on a MVP, the better off you can be.
Yeah, it seems like also getting that workflow down, that marketing workflow, and just distribution, because as you said before, that stuff's harder than making the game sometimes. And so now it's helpful to do that for smaller ones. Now you know if you have a bigger game coming out, you like, well, that'll take about a week. We need to send it out to these people. So I think that gets helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Sweet. Cool. So like, in addition to like planning and getting out a game, you did say you were like one of the sole developers in the company. I'm curious, like, are you doing all aspects of the game development? Like, are you doing the art, are you doing the music, the sound? Are you doing all of that by yourself, or is there some outsourcing going on?
Depending on the game, for the Amber Fox project, which is one we have partnered with the comic book company, they have artists, and they actually have a few 3D artists on staff, and they will outsource to take care of some of the art, some of the rigging. I do a lot of the level design and the actual programming of the game. And then, like for Vortex Strike, I did all the art, and then everything else to go with it.
Cool. Which actually kind of leads me to my next question, and that's just about your tool set. As a company, as a developer, we know that you're using Unity 3D, the best engine around, but like, what other tools are you using, like for art, for sound, for marketing, any tools that you think people can leverage, as developers, as indie developers, or even as a studio?
Things I use are, I use Blender a lot for doing some 3D animation, and actually I use it for video editing.
Really?
Yes. Blender actually has an ability where I can import the videos back in and then actually use it to edit video, add sound. Actually, I built the first trailer for the Amber Fox in Blender.
Sweet.
Cool.
So it's just, you just got to get a little bit past the interface, and once you learn that,
interface is a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other tools outside of like art and video editing?
Yeah, I use been using Muse Sound and which is a score tool. I use Texture Packer. See what else is little bits of things that I use a program on the Mac called Pixelmator for doing some artwork and some touch-up. I'm very much a proponent for open source as much as possible.
Yeah, I agree.
So, especially being an indie dev.
I.e. free.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's free, and you also don't want to come across the licensing fun stuff that, or someone catches you doing something and all of a sudden you're hit with piracy issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
That's something you don't want to go, some place you don't want to go. So that's about that, and I use Audacity.
Audacity's good though. It is a good free alternative, but
yeah, that's Zach's camp. Actually, a lot of my
Adobe snob. I've always been, even though their stuff sucks too. But just kidding, Adobe.
Exactly. So yeah, speaking of like Amber Fox and Vortex Strike, like, what were some of your biggest challenges while developing these games, or some of them are still in development, but what was your biggest challenge, or the team's biggest challenge?
One of the things is time. It's especially when you're working on as a business on the side. It's like, where do you carve out time just to sit down and work versus being able to focus full time on it, which is very different. That, and like I said, the recent Google name issue, that kind of really caught me by surprise.
How similar does it have to be for it to catch it?
It's, like I said, I used, basically when I first create it, the base of the story was called FTL Effect originally, and that was just being FTL.
Oh yeah, because of FTL, the game. Yeah.
Was what they were flagging it for. Even though it's FTL Effect, it's completely different. The premise is completely different. It still flagged it for impersonation. I mean, and there was no getting around. Of course, I probably could have went after, but because I do have records that show me having that name created prior to FTL ever being in existence.
Right.
Like I said, I've been working on this story and concept for 6 years.
Cool. Yeah. One question. I guess another question I had about this is, especially like you said, you had to rebrand and do a lot of work just to get your game out there. After hearing, some of the Google hangups, where are my questions going? What were you like? What was your release process like after after the rebranding? What went into that and getting that released, and because I see you're marketing, you guys are starting to market the game a lot. What's some of the plan that you guys put in place to get your game out there?
First, come on the Debug Lounge.
Yeah.
Well, right now it's just kind of word of mouth. Just put it on Facebook and share it with a few friends and a few groups who I know would be interested in it and may support it. But it's like the rebranding is I had to go retouch all the graphics. I actually had to go restyle the title screen and retake all the screenshots I need. Go change all the metadata on Google site. Went ahead and pushed that one through. And saw that they finally will take it. And then I had to go back and touch Apple and wait for their process. But it was like maybe a day and a half of work. So
are you sending out keys or whatever or sending out copies to sites, or any kind of plan with press or sites?
I have to actually talk with our marketing guy a little bit more because
I need to talk to the marketing department.
Yeah, pretty much. I've just done a little bit on Facebook, but I think we're kind of more focused on what's next, and we'll probably push updates to this one later and have the story evolve a little bit more. But
cool.
Actually, go add a few more enemies and stuff, but
cool.
There's always tweaks you can make to it, but
yeah.
And now you're saddled with that forever to keep updating. Where are the updates?
Exactly.
And we talked about that before. That is something that's important nowadays. So when you think, even putting out a tiny game, you still sometimes, I bet you guys think about what you can do to it in the future, how it fits into your larger Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Very cool.
So if you could give us like a pitch of your game, the one that's most recently out, like what would that be? Like try to sell the game to us, essentially. What hit your market?
So, like I said, I'm not a marketing guy. I'm the creative nut behind the keyboard usually.
Gotcha.
So,
Cool.
but it's just blasting through space, trying to get through waves and waves of the invading armada.
Sweet. Cool.
Go get it. So, Allan, if you had any advice for other developers, like you just went through a process that I bet some people wish they would have done already. They're like, I want to make a game. I don't know if I can, but you just released the game. You've worked on games before. What's like the biggest piece of advice you give to developers out there that are struggling right now on Screenshot Saturday?
I would say go for it. Heads down. Just if you have something you want to put out and you feel like you're struggling with it, you don't know how to get to it through a solution, it's okay to take a break, but come back to it, power through it, and finish it off.
Nice.
Excellent.
Preach.
Well said.
Well said. Cool. Well, I mean, I think that basically that's a great ending to the interview. Again, this was Allan Davis. He has been on the Debug Lounge for quite some time. Unity meetup group in Atlanta, so you guys should reach out to him there. So yeah, we'll definitely put the trailer that you made in Blender on the released episode site or on the show notes or whatever. So yeah, thank you very much, Allan, for joining us for our first interview.
Thank you for being the brave one, right?
Brave.
No problem. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, man.
Thanks. Have a good one.
You too.